And it showed me that if I focused on something and I was willing to really commit to it, that I could change it.
Okay.
And obviously then for the next really, it was another 3.5 years after that.
So you went to university,
I went to university
in Swansea, South Wales.
Yeah, which to me was...
And you had your dream, you could sleep all day.
That's right, exactly. And you know, I chose the university really based upon one thing, which was that it was by the sea. And it meant that, you know, I'd be able to go for walks on the beach. I mean, you have a lot of jumpers and coats when you're in South Wales, but I was able to do that. And I made friends, you know, and I was very lucky in my first year. I was on a communal floor of 20 people, and they'd put me with some final year students and basically all the foreign students, and they thought I probably didn't quite fit in because of my illness. But I met some really interesting people. Yeah. So, you know, I had people from Greece, people from America. So without going out, I could still kind of have a life. Yeah. You know, I was able to, because
but was your energy substantially better
It
then?
was significantly improved within a year.
Yes.
To the point that I was able to look after myself at university. So I could take the bus to the town and get my food. And I could go to my lectures, and, you know, I was still very limited in what I could do. But I could basically look after myself without a carer. So you were a long way from cured,
but you were functioning a lot better than you were.
And I had my independence, you know, which I hadn't had for a long time.
Well, this is quite a long story, isn't it? It's not like suddenly you find the answer and you have the right mental discipline and it takes 3 months and you're 100%.
Absolutely.
That wasn't the case with you.
That's true. And I think especially at that time when there was so little information. I mean, in the 10 years since then, there's a huge amount of research and ideas that have come out, which makes it easy. On one hand, it's challenging because there's so much information.
Let's stick to the story in sequence so we get it all recorded. So you at university, you ended up doing very well, didn't you, academically?
Yeah, and I was studying psychology, which I loved. I would get frustrated at times that, you know, by this point, my great love was reading, and I would read lots and lots of books on health, psychology, nutrition, all these kinds of things. And I would get quite frustrated sometimes that the traditional model at university was very much a kind of, you know, you spend many years in therapy. That, you know, it was a very... It wasn't that a more Freudian model if you just sit there and do nothing, but it wasn't proactive in the way that I'd become interested. But nonetheless, I was intellectually stimulated. By this point, I was meditating a lot more, doing a lot more yoga. I got to the point I could go to a yoga class. Okay. No, again, it's significant kind of improvement. Okay. And
anyway, you eventually graduated from university. You got very good grades.
Yes.
You came back to London.
Yeah, and I should say also before that, during that final year at university, I was studying things like hypnotherapy, something called NLP, which stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming.
So you were really
life
going
coaching.
More into psychological techniques.
Absolutely.
And the mind more,
That's right. That's right. And I was doing that whilst I was doing my final year at university, because having been through everything I'd been through, I wanted to finish university and I wanted to do what I loved. Because by this point I was making a real recovery. You know, I was getting stronger and stronger, and there were various things along the way which, you know, made more of a difference as I understood the relationship of, I really started to get the relationship of stress.
So why were you getting, maybe you just answered it with this last point, but why were you getting stronger, do you think?
I think, you know, a number of things, one of which was definitely, I really understood the relationship between how stressed I was as a result of my situation. Taking out of the equation the fact that I may have had anxiety prior to that, the anxiety caused by having all of these symptoms, no explanation of the symptoms.
Yes.
I'd be in the shops, I felt like I was going to collapse.
But all you were discovering there was that anxiety made your illness worse. You hadn't actually discovered why you had the illness.
Well,
or had you?
I think what I'd also understood is it stopped my body from being able to heal. So it meant that because I was constantly in this adrenaline loop, in this state of anxiety, and as a result of that, totally disconnected from my body on one level, that it meant my body couldn't function normally. So having at this point dealt with a lot of the more physical components, like, you know, I'd really worked on the candida side of things and worked out food allergies, and I think a lot of the physical side I'd done a lot of work on. But at this stage, the shift was more of a psychological shift. And despite years of, at this stage, meditation and yoga, there was a shift that I was able to kind of to have.
So what you're actually saying is if it hadn't been for the stress about the illness,
right,
then you'd put the right factors in place
right,
for the body to recover on its own.
Right, and
okay.
I also think by that stage, I treated the physical side of it.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
You'd put the factors in place.
Right. So, and if I hadn't done that, I don't think that side would have been effective.
Right. Yeah.
And on a slightly kind of more esoterical level around it, through all this stuff that I'd become interested in, I'd found a way to be in the world that worked for me.
Right.
Because one of the things that had been very difficult as in my late teens with the illness had been my friends would go out on a Saturday night and basically get so drunk they'd fall over, and that was supposed to be a fun night out. And because I couldn't do that, I felt more and more lost of my place in the world. And and it was like I didn't want to be ill anymore, but I also didn't really know what I wanted to do and how to be with people. And I discovered that I had very low self-esteem as a teenager, and I'd been very bullied as a child, and all these things that had gone on. So by working through those, finding something that I loved and something that I wanted to do with my life, that was also a significant factor.